Hey guys, I'm Sally Lyndley. Welcome to this episode of Shop with Sally. This episode I want to chat about the clothing for styling yourself and being inspired by Jamaican, 70s, Caribbean, African fashion and style. So, typically when you think of kind of 70s Jamaican African inspiration, of course, the biggest person who always comes to my mind is Bob Marley. And then the second person who I'm always inspired by is Grace Jones. Now, Grace Jones always had like a heavy kind of disco vibe to her. And Bob Marley was always a little bit more on the casual side. It was always a fantastic like button-down shirt with a great 70s flare jean, or a fantastic like worn-out striped kind of athletic style t-shirt with this fantastic jean. So I'll give you options below for doing that kind of styling. Grace, to me, was a little too disco, so I'm gonna kind of, sidestep her inspiration necessarily for this kind of vibe, but I'm really going to hone in on, my interpretations of what Celine and Givenchy did for their spring-summer wardrobes that were inspired by full-on 70s Jamaica that you can find in the Black Style book that we had in the inspiration post. So, all that being said, the first thing that I think of as far as dresses go for the Caribbean African, Jamaican influence are like those insanely comfortable, bright colored, beautifully draped wrap dresses. Now, I'm not talking Diane van Furstenberg, blah, blah, blah. And I feel like in some ways Diane van Furstenberg was inspired by these women who've had this African and not too far off from a sari, but obviously very different materials, very different bright colored prints, but the kind of traditional African women's clothing where you see these amazing wrap dresses. So I'll put some options of those below, of printed and also just classic kind of draped, very kind of almost more traditional African beautiful dresses. They're super comfy, and to me they look like wearing like a giant t-shirt or giant tank top. So I love those vibes and inspirations. And then the other thing that I love from this whole area, there was so much political turmoil happening in Jamaica at the time, which is of course a lot of the inspiration from Bob Marley. So you'd see these women in these like super cool kind of 70s Jamaican vibed outfits, and they would have just a military jacket thrown over their pleated skirt, or and their sweater or their tank top or their button-down shirt. So I love taking that kind of concept of the political military jackets that a lot of the men wore from the Jamaican dance hall era, and adding that into your wardrobe here. So I'll put some of my favorite like kind of worn-in vintage style military jackets here, and great things from the army surplus there to pull in until the summer becomes too hot to wear a jacket. But I always like to have something for night, so that's me. I like to include a jacket still until we get into like July and August. And then the other thing that I like to pull from kind of more the menswear vibe from the Jamaican, Caribbean, African inspiration is those kind of cotton knit tank tops that they wore. Now, most of the time when people think of like a fishnet tank top, they think of like the cheesy one that the strippers wear at the dance, the titty dance club. But these are not like that at all. These are like more of a cotton silk or cotton linen, like whiter net tank top. Isabel Marant's done a ton of them in the past. I'll see what I can find on Ukes of that. Phoebe did a whole bunch of skirts based on it for the Celine runway, and I know that you can find these like classic kind of Caribbean, African net tank tops. So I'll find some of those and put those here for you. I'm obsessed with those for summer as like a layering piece under your button-down shirts or military jackets. Depending on, and it's also like a fun beach cover up to throw over your bikini to go to the beach. So I just love having those as texture in my wardrobe for the summer. And then, there's always kind of the classic 70s jean. Now, this again is pulling from Bob Marley, but also from a lot of the women of that time. They were wearing a fantastic high-waisted, pure cotton denim flared jean. So I'll find the best of those vintage available on the internet. If you're in New York, there's What Comes Around Goes Around, has the most fantastic selection of vintage Levi's and all vintage jeans from the 70s. Also, if you're in LA or closer to LA, there's the American Rag store and Jet Rag. Jet Rag's the cheaper version, but American Rag has the best an LA denim collection that I found. So, and that's not too crazy overpriced and too like nerdy about it, but they have the most amazing 70s denim that you can find as far as getting a legit flare. Now, remember when you're buying vintage denim, because it's cotton and because it shrinks and then wears out and then shrinks, this size, you might need to up your size by a couple inches. I'm usually like a 30, and sometimes I'm in a 34 when it comes to vintage denim because it's been washed so many times that it shrinks up really small. So remember that. That's why I always recommend with vintage denim, if you can, unless you know what size you need to size up to, I would definitely go into a store and see what you can find. But yeah, and then like J Brand does the Love Story, which is a very, very fantastic 70s shape flare jean, and then I'll find whatever else I can find here on the internet for you guys and post below. So I think that if you're more of the casual girl who likes to rock a lot of denim, and you want to bring in this kind of like Bob Marley, like Caribbean Jamaican vibe, that the flare denim and some really great kind of thin button-down gingham shirts are a great way to do that, or linen shirts. I know we've done linen here already in the past, but Bob Marley was always in a fabulous extra small style. It was never big. It was always like really well fitted to his arm, and same with the women. And they, the women usually wore it tucked in. If you want to go more tomboy style, you can wear it tucked out. And yeah, and do it with some high-waisted fantastic denim. Now, I love a high-waisted denim 70s flare. Number one, because they're actually, to me, more comfortable and they're more slimming when you have a high waist versus a low waist. The low waist is always a complication because when you sit down, you can have your butt crack showing and like muffin top and all that crap, which I cannot stand. So to me, it's all about high waist, high waist, high waist, and a fabulous flare. So, and then also to find a jean if you're looking at a current jean like a newer manufacturer and not a vintage jean like a vintage Levi's, then make sure you're getting a high cotton content and less of lycra or stretch in the denim, because the more stretch and lycra, to me, the cheaper the jean seems and the weirder they fall when they're in a flare fit. So, and if you want to dress, if you're more, as far as like doing t-shirts and you're more on the casual side again with your jeans, I love a striped t-shirt here. Is very like Caribbean, African, Jamaican. I love like a sports t-shirt, like a 70s, like more thin sports t-shirt, to me is very Bob Marley. And I love those kind of vibes mixed in with the flare. And I think with a great, Adidas sneaker or a great sandal, this is a fantastic look for spring, summer. And then if you like to do a little bit more of the dressed up version, I know we already talked about the kind of wrappy draped dresses that are African inspired. I also love the 70s pleated dresses, 70s pleated skirts that Phoebe Philo showed. They're longer, they hit about calf length. A lot of them were fishtail, so they were really angled, different angled, really cool skirts, and I'll put some options of those below. I love, Zara has incredible knockoffs for both trousers and skirts of these pleated options, which I'm obsessed by. And I love the way that Phoebe also and Celine took the oversized sweater silhouette and the oversized t-shirt silhouette and mixed it with these pleated skirts, and then you can do it with pleated trousers. So I think this is a super cool way of dressing. Not only is it cool physically, because you can buy big cotton t-shirts and layer that over these more kind of non-tight fitting pleated skirts. It's very cool for summer and temperature wise, but it also looks, the silhouette I'm just totally obsessed by. And then also if you're kind of the person who likes to rock more of a tank top or a sleeveless number, then I think halter tops are fantastic here. Wife beaters are fantastic here. It's very 70s Jamaica. All the dudes wore a wife beater under their button-down shirt, which I love. So I'll put my favorite A shirts and wife beater options below, as well as those net shirts I mentioned before. And then and I'll put some good halter tops too, because in the 70s, in general, whether you're in Jamaica or in America or anywhere, the halter tops were everywhere, and there's a lot of them out there today that are fantastic, more of halter top, crop tops, and then regular halter tops that just have the tie here, connect here, and then have a tie like at the bottom of your back. Those also look fantastic with the pleated skirts. They look fantastic with the jeans, the high-waisted jeans. So if you're more, into showing your shoulders and getting kind of sexy like that, those are a good option. Halter top's a fantastic option. Now, as far as thinking about colors, what I loved about the Celine runway and like typical Jamaica, like 70s Jamaica throwback, is the colors were just fantastic. It was all kind of primary colors with definitely like lots of reds, lots of blues, lots of yellows, and then of course Jamaica is always yellow, green, and black. So I love a combination of these colors and keeping it as solid as possible, and then adding in big bold prints from like very African inspired big bold prints. And then also, you know, with the Jamaican vibe, there was always fun stripes, and then you would have these guys wearing these amazing gingham or plaid, like linen and cotton shirts. So I'll put some options of that below, and that was another thing that Phoebe had done on the Celine runway that I thought was really cool for styling. When you have these kind of super blocked, super kind of traditional looking clothing with like a funny gingham print underneath or a funny plaid print underneath, I think it's super cool. So that's my take on bringing in a modern version of 70s Jamaica and Caribbean African inspiration into your wardrobe. On the next episode, I'll go over accessories for you guys to check out. And yeah, I hope you love it. I am obsessed with it, and I'm going to be dressing like this for summer, so I'm, you know, having a moment. I'll see you guys in the next episode of Shop with Sally. Have an awesome day. Check you later.